Since the Return to World campaign that Capcom did last December by discounting the price of Monster Hunter World and its Iceborne DLC by nearly 70%, Monster Hunter World has quickly become one of my favorite games of all time in my recent memory. I love almost every aspect of the game. The graphics, the character customization, the combat, and the detailed world and endemic life that Capcom carefully made for Monster Hunter World. When I first played the game, I said to myself, no wonder this game is Capcom's best-selling game of all time. And I know a lot of you Monster Hunter fans and veterans and newcomers alike would agree with me that Monster Hunter World is a good game. But nothing is ever perfect. In my last video, I talked about my experience with Monster Hunter franchise, and one of them is of course Monster Hunter World. One of the points that I made in that video is that Alatreon and Fatalis shouldn't be a Master Rank 24 fight, because both Alatreon and Fatalis are not the fight that balance a lot of MR24 gears and weapons. It's just too imbalanced to make sense, and that statement that I made caused a little bit of discussion in that video. Some agree with me, some don't, and that's a good thing. I would love to discuss with other people about the game that I love, so we can compare and contrast each other's viewpoint. Before I talk about the point that some of these comments made against my statement, let's talk about what exactly balance in the video game is supposed to mean. According to Wikipedia website, game balance is generally understood as introducing a level of fairness for the players. This includes adjusting difficulty, win-loss conditions, game states, economy balancings, and so on to work in tandem with each other. The concept of game balance depends on the game genre. Most game designers agree that game balancing serves towards providing an engaging player experience. And yeah, I agree with that. When the game is hard but fair, it's fun. But when it's too easy, it's boring. And when it's too difficult, it's become frustrating. You cannot go too deep in one direction, otherwise it's not gonna be an engaging experience for the player. Monster Hunter World did this extremely well, with its deep combat mechanic of each weapon and complex movesets of the monsters that telegraph pretty well so the player can dodge and whip in their attack to finish the enemies. Monster Hunter combat has always been this way since its first installment back in PlayStation 2. One of, if not the best fight in Monster Hunter World in my opinion, is Sinogo. He's fast and aggressive, but every single attack that he made telegraphs so well you can see it coming, so you can prepare to law dodge it or move away on time. And when his attack ends, he also took some time to recover, therefore the players has enough time to punish him. Most of the fights in Monster Hunter World are like this, a dance between the monster and the hunter that ends in one of the demise of one of them. Until Alatreon. Alatreon himself is a pretty fun fight. His attacks are fast and hit hard, but they're well telegraphed enough to see and predict. The combination of ice, fire, and dragon element attacks that he can do is just so awesome. I like his theme, his movesets, and his design, but I despise his gimmick. At the start of the fight, he will either be in the ice or fire form, then he will turn to his dragon element form. This is the only phase in the fight where you can destroy his horn. Then he will perform the Eschaton Judgment, his ultimate move that will kill you instantly if you don't deal enough elemental damage against him. Then he will turn to ice or fire form depending on which form he appears first in the fight. and to deal maximum elemental damage to him in order to weaken his Eschaton Judgment, you need to use a collect element to hit him. If he is in his fire form, he is weak to ice. If he is in his ice form, he is weak to fire. And if he is in his dragon element form, he is weak to dragon element. But as I just told you, he will change his elemental form throughout the fight. Say, you know he will first appear in his fire form, so you bring an ice elemental weapon to fight him. But he will eventually turn to his ice form and thus be immune to ice damage. And that will just throw all your plan and preparation out the window. Therefore, you don't want that to happen. The only way to prevent him from changing his form into the element that you don't want is to break his horn while he is in his dragon element form. This fight is just a lot. It has so many nuances that you need to know. The elemental damage, Alatreon changing form, how to break his horn, Eschaton Judgment, and how to weaken it. The amount of mechanic and information and preparation that you need for this fight alone is kind of ridiculous, because no other fight in this entire game required this much learning and preparation. All these mechanics are unique to this fight and this fight alone. Even the hardest fight in the entire game, Fatalis, is not even this complicated. If Alatreon fight is just like any other fight in this game, I wouldn't have any kind of problem with it. But it's not. They have to add all kinds of gimmicks to make the fight unique somehow, and I don't think this is a good way to go about it in my opinion. Limiting the player choice is rarely a good thing, and on top of all of that, the fact that it was available at MR24 is just so confusing. The fight is clearly balanced around MR100, or at least MR70 and onward. Alatreon himself is fine, he's pretty fun to fight, and the movesets are well choreographed for the most part, but his gimmick is just annoying. It's not even that difficult, it's just annoying. And most of the discussion about Alatreon online are mostly about this particular gimmick as well. No wonder why, because it's annoying. Let's move on to another monster that I talked about in my last video, which is Fatalis. Fatalis is by far the strongest monster in the entire game. Therefore, his fight is the hardest fight in the game. Rightfully so, because he is the last boss of the game. His damage is crazy. His attacks have wide hitboxes. His movesets are complex and pretty tricky to dodge, and the fight only lasts for 30 minutes. So you better bring your best gear to fight him. Otherwise, the time will run out. Not only do you need to fight Fatalis, you also need to fight the time limit as well. But he has no gimmick to limit you. There's no need to bring a specific weapon or element to fight him. There's no need to break any part of his body to prevent him from changing form. And there's no limit in the way you get yourself to fight him. You can fight him with Blast/Law damage build. You can fight him with a full Divine Blessing, Evade Window and Evade Extension build. You can fight him with an Elemental build. You can build and do whatever you want. And that's a good thing. That is what makes Monster Hunter fun. You can build and do whatever you want, and you will still finish the hunt successfully. This kind of practice is more commonly known as fuck around and find out. And Fatalis in that design philosophy came into life. Because no matter what you build, no matter what your weapons of choice are, this fight is still going to be challenging, but not impossible. You can still successfully hunt Fatalis no matter what you build or your weapon was. For example, if you go full on pure damage build, you probably have enough damage to kill Fatalis before the 30-minute time limit, but you will die extremely quickly, so you have to be careful with his attacks, and you have to be ready to dodge everything he throws at you. Or if you go full on tank build with full divine blessing, evade window, evade extension and defense boost, you're not gonna die as much, or not even die at all, but you're probably going to struggle with killing Fatalis before 30 minutes. So no matter what you do or what your build was, this fight is still hard, but it's not impossible. Besides, his moveset, his theme, his design, and his fight is just good in general. The MR24 requirement is still too low if I have to be honest. I think it would be perfect if this fight is at least available at MR70 and onward, because this fight along with Alatreon is clearly not designed and balanced along MR24. But one thing that I can say for sure is that I prefer Fatalis over Alatreon by a lot. I think Fatalis fight is just a lot better than Alatreon. One of the comments that did not agree with me from my previous Monster Hunter video said that they don't find letting the player fight an over-level monster to be a problem, because other games and the old Monster Hunter games are also done the same thing, to encourage these new players to grind and work toward getting new and better gears in order to successfully kill these late game bosses. It's like putting a goal for the player to work toward. Some of the comments even said that pinpointing these things to be a problem in Monster Hunter World is quite funny, because there are even worse problems in this game, like grinding in Guiding Land or RNG decoration farming. On the other hand, the comment that agree with me said that they do understand the point that the other comments that did not agree with me made, but they also said that letting a player find an over-level boss to set a goal for these players could also be a double-edged sword, because by letting the player fight this boss that early and got demolished over and over and over again can also cause anger and frustration. Worse, they might just quit the game entirely. And I agree with them. As a game developer, you don't want that to happen. They also said that these struggling players might get help from other people, but they might also not get the best of help, and they might also be the cause to fail the other people hunt as well. These comments from those who don't find that letting players fight an over-level monster is a bad thing, and those who see it as a double-edged sword, both gave an insightful and reasonable comments. And I learned quite a bit reading these comments, but in my opinion, I still don't think letting players fight an imbalance fight is a good thing, because Capcom can avoid this problem and this discussion entirely by making the whole game balanced. They don't have to let a low MR player walk into the fight and die over and over and over again until they get so disheartening by it, or get so frustrated until they give up and decided to quit the game entirely, or if they still find the game enjoyable after failing an imbalanced fight over and over again and decide to grind better gears. If Capcom just upped the MR requirement of Alatreon and Fatalis to 100 or at least 70 and onward, because that would let these low MR players know that, hey, You need to grind more for these fights to be available to you, and it's also a way to tell these new players that these fights are hard. They are difficult because they require high MR to even begin to fight these monsters. And in the grinding process from say MR 24, the original requirement that you need to fight Alatreon and Fatalis to MR 70 or better yet MR 100, because it will naturally give these players a whole bunch of new and more powerful gears, weapons, and decorations, and open up the augment system for their weapon. Some people online that I saw on Reddit and YouTube said that the reason why Capcom let low MR players fight these monsters is so that these players can also experience Alatreon and Fatalis hunt as well. They were afraid that if they set the MR requirement too high, these players might not be able to experience them. Yeah, that's fair, I can see that. But what do you think about which kind of experience these players will get when they die in a fight that doesn't even balance to their level of gears multiple times in a row? A good one or a bad one? Think about it. Lastly, I want to say that I respect and understand the comments and opinions that disagree with me, and I also want to ask you to do the same thing to my opinion as well. And that is the video. I just want to talk about the game that I love with all of you. Now let's just wait and prepare ourselves for the new generation of Monster Hunter, Monster Hunter Y, and hopefully Monster Hunter Y will be a lot more balanced than Monster Hunter World. But I still want to say something, that just because I criticize them from this kind of problem doesn't mean I hate Monster Hunter World. I still like the game a lot, and I still really like the new generation of Monster Hunter to be a better game than the generation 5 of Monster Hunter. That's why I make this video, and I still love Monster Hunter a lot, and I just hope for the best of the entire series.